Okay, so as we have assembled for the workshop of public administration, uh, although there is nothing to offer for the workshop per se, as in I will start directly with the teaching, which is explanation of the syllabus. And it is very important to understand the syllabus because you will be studying the subject for the next 3 months, and hence you need to have an idea that what is the direction in which the syllabus will flow. Okay, so I'll just, for the benefit of those students who have just started their preparation, I will take 5 minutes to discuss about the stages of the examination and where exactly the subject of public administration lies in your syllabus. Okay, so to begin with, we know that you will be facing your first stage, which is the prelims examination. We know that the prelims examination, it comprises of 2 different stages, the general studies paper and the CSAT paper. So you have the first paper, which is general studies of 200 marks. And then the second paper, which is the civil services aptitude test, which is again of 200 marks. But this paper is an asterisk mark. This is a qualifying paper that you just need to score 33%. This is a qualifying paper, so you need to score 66 marks out of 200 for you to be eligible, right? For you to be eligible for consideration of selection in prelims. It's not that you get a 66 plus marks and you write the mains. No. If you do not score a 66 marks, howsoever good you have scored in your general studies, you will not be considered for selection, right? And then for those who have qualified CSAT, suppose if the vacancy is 100, then generally that the number of people selected for mains is 12 times the vacancy. So 1200 people will be selected for mains. So who are those 1200 people? That the general studies marks of all the CSAT qualified people would be arranged, and the top 1200 over there, they will be writing the mains examination, right? I'm sure you know the subjects that you have to study in general studies and CSAT. Those who qualify prelims, now they move to the second stage, which is the mains stage of examination. Without a doubt, every stage of the examination is very important, equally important, because if you do not qualify prelims, then obviously you don't get a chance to write the mains examination. So when I tend to emphasize, or rather overemphasize on the mains examination, at no point of time it should be misunderstood that you can afford to take your prelims lightly. You miss by a whisker in your prelims exam, you don't write the mains exam itself, right? So because it's a mains workshop, and obviously that in your overall selection as well as the rank that you secure, the mains examination, the marks that you secure in the mains examination is the ultimate deciding factor, right? So taking that into consideration, I will emphasize more on the mains, but we all know that, when I'm talking about mains, it's a presumption that we have qualified prelims, okay? So in mains examination, you have, say, a qualifying English paper. A qualifying English paper. This should not be a problem. This is of 300 marks. You have to secure 100 marks over here. This is again qualifying, so you have to score 100 marks out of 300 marks. It has not been a problem in general. Why? Because, right, in case of us, that, we all would have done our elementary basic education in English language, right? भले स्कूल में हाँ हिंदी में बात हो रहा है या जो भी बात हो रहा है, लेकिन घर पे हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं अपने मदर डायलेक्ट में. But then we have a good functional understanding of English that makes us not so worried about the qualifying English, right? It's qualifying. Its marks is not added for the purpose of deciding your rank, okay? Now comes the other paper. For example, you have the general studies paper 1. I will just mention the subjects that you have to study over here. In general studies paper 1, we have to study history. We have to study geography. We have to study Indian society, the social issues, and the topics of Northeast, for example, Northeast history, Northeast geography, Northeast political evolution, etc. Okay, so that is your general studies mains paper 1. The second is the general studies mains paper 2. Now this comprises of your polity or constitution, the international relation, social justice, and governance. Okay. Then you have your general studies paper 3, wherein we have to study economic development, science and technology, internal security, and disaster management. So all the topics related to environment, etc., disaster management. The fourth paper, general studies paper 4, it is ethics, integrity, aptitude. It is ethics, integrity, aptitude. And then you have all these papers, they are mandatory general studies paper. Then you have another mandatory paper, which is essay. So you have these 5 papers of 250 marks each. So all these 5 papers, they are of 250 marks each. So 250 into 5, which is 1250 marks. If you look at the nature of the question over here, that you will have around 19 to 20 questions, right? Depending upon ethics has a different number of questions, because in ethics you have case studies, and each case study comprises of 20 marks. Whereas if you talk about the other general studies paper, that the questions are of 10 marks and 15 marks generally, okay? But then this time APPSCC did, subdivide the questions and even asked questions of 1 marks and 2 marks, okay? So if I have to tell one basic difference between your optional subject and your general studies paper is that all the questions in your general studies paper are mandatory. You don't get a choice that you can either solve question number 1 or question number 2, no. Right? They're all mandatory questions, right? In essay, you have to write 2 essays. So there are 2 essays of 125 marks each. That makes it again 250 marks. As per the last amendment, that one of the essays would be general essay and the other essay would be Arunachal Pradesh specific. To my mind, that makes the syllabus very, very crystal clear. Rather, it adds to the ease of preparation, because now if you prepare about, say, suppose the social milieu, the tribal culture, the economic opportunities, the, say, security threats, some burning social issues, environmental concern, etc., developmental priorities, then probably you are very close to, writing an essay that probably may come in exam, right? Because of the simple reason that it will be the second year of examination for APPSCC in which an essay would be asked on Arunachal Pradesh. And to write one essay, you get 4 choices. To write one essay, you get 4 choices. So even if you prepare some good knowledge on Arunachal Pradesh, it is most likely कि उस 4 में एक essay तो आप लिख पाएंगे, right? So remember that, because it was a concern of many people that now, a specific topic on Arunachal will come. But then this has made our task simple, right? It has made our task simple that now we know that at least the topics are more predictable when it comes to the second essay as compared to the first essay. Fine? Okay. Now, after this mandatory 5 papers, the 6th paper is optional subject. One optional subject that we all have to choose. And of the same optional subject, that there are 2 papers. There are 2 papers of the same optional subject. You have a paper 1 and you have a paper 2. And this is how 250 into 2, which is 500 marks. The overall mains examination is of 1750 marks. The number of selection in the mains examination is subject to the fulfillment of other criteria. It is in the ratio of 1:3. So if you have 100 vacancy, then 300 people will be selected in mains and they will be facing the interview, right? The interview is of 275 marks. I'm not at all undermining the importance of interview, because all the people who would get selected, almost say around good number of them will have their marks very comparable to each other's marks, right? But I'm sure you all would have gone through the last year's result. If you look at the mains marks of the top 20-25 people, right, you would understand that for them, facing interview was a mere formality. Yes or no? Was a mere formality, right? When you are preparing today, that our effort should be to score as high as possible in mains examination, right? Because if you are able to do that, then probably, right, you will not have to bother much about your interview score. Obviously, you would love to score high in interview as well. But then, if you are not able to score good in your mains examination, any good score in interview probably will not come to your rescue. Why? Because if you score low in 1750, you will not be able to catch up, right? Even if you have qualified. Suppose if you are just hovering around the mains cutoff से आपको 10 number, 15 number ज़्यादा आया है, you will not be able to catch up with the rest of the crowd, right? But suppose if you are able to make a good difference, if you are say 100, 150 marks above the mains cutoff, then probably that, it's all about that a good interview score will see you in the top 5, top 10, top 20, right? That your selection would be guaranteed if you have a good score in your mains examination, right? I would advise you to go through the result again to vet, to see that whatever I'm saying, that makes sense or not, right? You look at the main score of all the people in mostly in top 25, 30, you will find it to be very high, right? You will also find that some people who have scored very high in mains, right? Maybe that they have not scored equally well in their interview, but you will see still they have made it. Why? Because out of the 1750 marks, their score is very high, right? So I hope that the composition is clear. Okay. Now, talking about the subject of public administration, can I assume that all of you have already decided your optional subject? Or is there anybody who's still in a dilemma, doldrum, has not decided, but... Okay. That makes my task a little dicey, because don't get influenced by what I'm saying, right? It's my subject, so obviously I will have a more rational bias in favor of my subject, right? So make sure that whenever I say, and all the subjects that you study, selection happens with all the subjects, right? Selections have happened with law, selections have happened with botany, selections have happened with chemistry, selections have happened with agriculture, right? Anthropology, geography, history, all the subjects, right? You need just one seat for yourself, right? Obviously, the number of selections would be higher in the subject which is more popular, which is taken by more number of people. So for example, the most popular subjects, popular matlab, I'm not talking about good or bad. Popular is which is taken by more population. The most popular subjects in APPSCC taken by the large number of people has always been, say, starting with geography, right? That large number of people write their mains examination with geography, right? Then the subject of sociology, equally good number of people write the mains examination with the subject of sociology. Then, subjects like agriculture, especially in Arunachal Pradesh, because you have a large number of agriculture graduates in the state. Okay, so agriculture has also been a popular subject in APPSCC. Besides that, say, subjects like anthropology, public administration, right? They are also popular subjects. History is also a popular subject, but of late because of the perception that it's vast, but it's not that. History is a wonderful subject because of at times the perception that you don't have that large number of people opting for history as compared to the other subjects that I mentioned. Again, I'm clarifying that subjects like public administration, sociology, political science, anthropology, geography, they do not require any background knowledge. So when I'm speaking for my subject, that public administration, it does not require a background knowledge. Let me also clarify that there are a good number of other subjects which does not require a background knowledge. But for example, you cannot opt for a law, right? Directly, if you're not a law graduate, probably it will be very, very difficult, right? You cannot opt for agriculture if you are not, thank you, that if you're not from the agriculture or related background, it will be very difficult, right? You can't take a subject of mathematics if you are not a mathematics graduate or engineering graduate. So there are certain subjects that require a background knowledge. There are certain subjects that do not require a background knowledge. Public administration is one such subject which does not require a background knowledge, right? Before I talk about my subject, let me first tell you what the subject is, okay? That what all do we have to study in public administration? See, administration, it comes from the word administer. It comes from the word administer. The meaning of administer is to take care of. To take care of what? To take care of all the public work. For example, when I say public work, that means the government's work. But today, government's work is not just providing goods and services to people, but also to monitor, to regulate, to coordinate with the private sector, which is also providing public goods and services. Yes or no? Today, government is not the sole provider of public goods and services. We also have the private sector, which is equally a participant in providing public goods and public services, right? So any and everything which is related to the task of the government, that is done by public administrators. So public administrators or civil servants, they are recruited by the state. Why? Because of their merit, because of their expertise, because of their hard work, they will be the one who will take care of, they will be the one who will manage the complex task of the government. Okay, the complex task of the government. So what do we actually study in public administration? Before I take you through, line by line of the syllabus, let me tell you that what do we actually study in public administration? What is this subject all about? This subject, it was carved out from its mother discipline of, so suppose if there is a subject of political science, Political science was talking about the ideals, the objective, that what should be the nature of state. Should it be a communist, socialist state? Should it be a capitalist state? That should it be a totalitarian state? Totalitarian, wherein the state has complete authority. Should it be a laissez-faire model? Laissez-faire. Let people decide what is good or bad for them. Right? No restrictions. So political science was talking about the nature of state. Political science was talking about the objectives. For example, the objectives of justice, equality, fraternity, development. So it was more talking about the questions starting with what. What should be the nature of state? What should be the objectives of the government? What all things the government should provide to people? And we came out with wonderful, all the theories. So throughout this, if you look at the subject of political science was stressed upon since time immemorial. What should be the nature of state? Even Chanakya talks about what should be the nature of state. That the state should be, that state should have an absolute monarch, and the absolute monarch should ensure welfare of people. The what aspect was answered by Chanakya, that what should be the nature of kingship? It should be absolute kingship. King के आगे कोई दूसरा आदमी नहीं होगा. The power of king cannot be challenged by anybody else. And what should be the objective of state? Welfare state. That the state has to take care of people. But he did not mention about how to do that. Right from centuries up to modern times, the subject of political science, it was stressing upon what should be done, what should be the nature of state, what facilities should be provided to the people, what extent of liberty can be enjoyed by the people, all these things. But then how it should be done was not emphasized. The action part of the government was not talked about. So it's something like कि हम medical science पे बहुत focus कर रहे हैं, medical science बहुत पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं, लेकिन I'm not focusing on my toothache. बाकी सारे body पे अच्छे से पढ़ाई कर रहे हैं, but I'm not focusing on toothache. So in that case, what happens? That the dental issues are not getting adequate attention. When dental issues will get adequate attention? One thing can be when you take out the subject of dentistry as a separate subject, right? Give it its own identity, then probably people will study dentistry, or else they will consider dentistry as a small part of the overall medical science. Am I making sense? Right? So this is what was done. There was an American president, Woodrow Wilson. In the year 1887, he wrote an essay. He wrote an essay on the functional aspect of administration. He wrote an essay highlighting that we are talking a lot about what a state should be like, what should be the responsibilities of state, right? What are the theories, what are the objectives? But we are not focusing on how to achieve that kind of a state, how to achieve those kind of objectives. And therefore, in fact, the essay on administration that he wrote in 1887, that is taken as the birth of the subject of public administration, and he took out a small part of political science, which was public administration, and he gave it an independent status so that more research could be done, right? More research could be done. For example, political science would say that the government should be responsive. Responsive. What is responsive? Quickness to respond. My work should be done at a fast pace. So that is the objective given by political science. Now public administration will see the how aspect, the functional aspect, that okay, how can I improve the pace of work? So for example, it will see that okay, the rest of the world is expediting, increasing the pace of work with the help of technology. With the help of technology. So fine, let us adopt those technologies even in administration to speed up the work of administration, right? That let us, for example, how small innovation started. Let me tell you that there is something called, there was a district collector, Anil Kumar Lakhina. It's called the Lakhina experiment. That generally the forms in the government offices in the district administration, they were all of white color. एक ही कलर का एक फॉर्म होता था. That the office was like a complete mess. फाइल्स निकालना, है ना, कौन सा पेपर कहाँ है ये खोजना बहुत मुश्किल होता था. He did a simple thing. For example, सबसे पहले तो ऑफिस को साफ सुथरा करा के, and then that color coded forms were introduced. Color coded forms. For example, for birth certificate, blue color. For marriage certificate, say red color. For any other certificate, say for gun license, say any brown color. So now I actually don't have to see that what is written on the document. Just by looking at the color, I know that, okay, where are the forms for which particular work. So these are small innovations, right? Obviously, I'm using simple example. So these are small innovations which became the concern of public administration. So public administration emerged as a subject that was focusing on the how aspect, how things can be done. What needs to be done has been discussed for thousands of years. Chanakya in 300 before Christ around, he had said that follow welfare state, that the state should take care of people. That is what the state is doing even today, right? That we have a concept of welfare state, that the Indian state aspires to be a welfare state. But then we have not been able to be a welfare state to the extent that we would want to. Why? Because we have, to an extent, right, partially failed on the how aspect, that how to be a welfare state. So public administration is a very, very recent subject which has been carved out of the subject of political science. And now, because it focuses on how aspect, so it is an interdisciplinary subject. It learns from the private sector. So it learns from management. Anybody who has done MBA over here? Or BBA? You have to study a lot of theories of management in public administration. Why? Because now the public administrators started to see that the big corporations in America, that they were able to achieve their objective. They were very, very efficient. So why is it that our government is not efficient? So the best practices that prevailed in the private sector, they borrowed those best practices and they started to use it in the government organizations. When technological advancement happened, when new economic theories came, the scholars of public administration would selectively use the theories of other subjects to make the models of administration. Fine? Okay. So the how aspect of the public work is emphasized by the subject of public administration. The things that we study over here, public administration is divided into two papers. Paper 1. In paper 1, there are 12 chapters divided into section A and section B. Section A and section B. Okay. I'm just giving you a gist. You need not look at your syllabus abhi, I'll take you through that. In section A, basically what we study in public administration, we study about the 4 important aspects of organization. There are 4 important aspects of any public organization. One is that when I'm starting a public organization, it must have a proper structure. Structure. When I talk about structure, see, for example, hierarchy is a structure, yes or no? Hierarchy, that there are some people at the the initiating stage, some people in the middle stage, some people at the higher stage. So hierarchy has some advantages. Why? Because as a junior officer, I'm answerable to my senior officer. It ensures a sense of discipline. Suppose when we are all working together, right? If we don't have a boss, if we don't have a superior, we will work as per our own whims and fancy. जिसको जैसा मन करेगा काम करेगा. It is possible कि हम लोग सब कोई अपना अपना काम बहुत अच्छे से कर रहा है. But then I am trying to push this desk in this direction and she is trying to push the desk in the opposite direction. Net work done will be 0. So we need somebody to take all our works and put it in one single direction, right? So it's important to have a hierarchy to ensure that all the works, they flow in one single direction, that there should be a unity of direction. और अगर हम लोग खुद से अपने अपने मन से काम करेगा, तो probably we will all, maybe that we are all trying to give our best, but then because there is nobody to give us the instruction that, look, you need to do this work, you need to do that work, that it is possible that my work is cancelling your work, right? And this is very much a possibility, especially in large organization. So there is a requirement of hierarchy so that the people at the senior level can provide one common direction to the work of all the subordinates. Then there is a sense of discipline. But then there are certain ill effects of hierarchy as well, yes or no? What are the ill effects of hierarchy? That many a times it promotes a very, very bureaucratic culture, status conscious people. Status conscious people, power conscious people. You go to some of the government, I'll give you very simple examples. You go to some of the government offices, you will find that there are two separate lifts. One for officers of a particular designation and above, and the other for others. It's a kind of the new colonial hangover. Yes or no? It's a new colonial hangover. Only because I'm a subordinate officer, I'm not allowed to use a particular lift. I'm not squarely blaming. Maybe that, that keeping in mind that their important works, their busy schedule, they need to be given a priority. But then you don't see the same thing happening in many other developed countries of the world. You don't see this happening in many private sector companies. So when I see that there is one exclusive zone for certain people, there is a power equation that starts that, okay, those are very powerful people. Now there is a work culture that, okay, I should not approach them that easily. So because of too much of hierarchy, the junior officers, they have a sense of hesitation in approaching the senior officer. Communication suffers, decision making gets delayed because of hierarchy. All these delays happen. So that means that there is one structure called hierarchy which has certain positives, which has certain limitations or negatives. तो जब हम पढ़ते हैं structure के बारे में, so we will have different scholars commenting upon the positives and negatives of the structure of organization. For example, मैंने एक vertical hierarchy की बात की. एक और स्ट्रक्चर की बात करता हूं मैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ यू सी दैट द गवर्नमेंट परफॉर्म्स सो मेनी टास्क एंड डिफरेंट टास्क्स आर ऑर्गेनाइज्ड इन डिफरेंट ग्रुप कॉल्ड से डिपार्टमेंट्स और मिनिस्ट्री, राइट? दैट इज ऑल्सो अ स्ट्रक्चर, yes or no? That you have a ministry of civil aviation, you have a ministry of road transport, you have a ministry of railway, you have a ministry of external affairs. ये भी तो एक स्ट्रक्चर है ना. इस स्ट्रक्चर का फायदा क्या है? That now it promotes specialization. Yes or no? If I am working in Ministry of External Affairs, then I am expected to develop my expertise in international relation, in external affairs. So when we talk about creation of different office departments, that is a structure. That it's not that we have just one single office, we have one single government. No, the government comprises of multiple ministries, multiple departments. So what is the advantage of it? That people can specialize into their work. Clear? That people can specialize into their work. But then if you see, what is the negative side? Many a times, too many departments, too many ministries will create a problem of coordination, आपस में coordination. And I'll give you a classic example. Many countries of the world, they do not have a separate ministry of civil aviation. Civil aviation, मतलब aeroplane, the air, the air traffic, civil aviation, जो manage करते हैं airline industry को. In many countries, there is one single common ministry for all kinds of transportation. Probably in India, because of the large size as well as high population, maybe that could be a reason, that we have 3 different ministries in the same area of transportation. That you have a ministry of road transportation, you have a ministry of civil aviation, and you have a ministry of railways. That is why you name any major city of India where you have been to. Traveling is my hobby, so I think that I have been to that city where you have been to. Let's start with our own, right? We have the airport at Holongi. It's a requirement. Topographical region hoga uska. You need a big area. You have an airport at Holongi. You have the railway station at Naharlagan. In fact, वो Naharlagan भी क्या ही है, वो तो बिल्कुल बाहर है Naharlagan के. And you have the bus stand at Lekhi, right? So that means, suppose यहाँ से तो onward फिर मुझे नहीं जाना पड़ता है, but somebody who is coming from Guwahati has to go to Zero, has to first come to the railway station, then travel all the way to Lekhi, take a bus, and then go to Zero. I know that there would be other options available, but I'm just talking in a general sense. Would it not have been a wonderful idea to have an integrated transportation system wherein that the airport, railway station, and the bus stand is close to each other? For example, talking about the national capital, Delhi, that we have the airport, right, in the outskirts of Delhi. You have the railway station in central Delhi, and because of that, the government had to create a rapid metro between the railway station and the airport. So normal, एक जो regular metro होता है, उसके अलावा एक fast metro है, rapid metro. And the cost of construction is very, very high. So if we would have planned the transportation development in a holistic manner, then probably we could have saved this unnecessary expenditure. और वो कब होता? When that probably entire transportation would be under one single ministry. But today, because transportation sector is divided into 3 different ministries, so what do we find missing? One common direction. They are all working good in their individual manner, that you have the airports coming up, but you look at most of the airports, they are coming up. If you go to a city like Bangalore, if you go to a city like Hyderabad, going to the airport seems like you are traveling to a new city itself. New city itself. Chennai to, if you have to travel from Chennai to Bangalore, it's almost like, without exaggerating, I'm telling you, it's almost like you could have another option of, driving from Chennai to Bangalore. Okay. That the Chennai airport in one outskirt of the city, the Bangalore airport in the other outskirt of city, you have to report around an hour, 1.5 hours before the flight departure. ये सारा टाइम मिला के ऑलमोस्ट उतने देर में तो आदमी ड्राइव करके चला जाएगा. So why these things? Because the transportation system was not developed in an integrated manner. Fine? Transportation system was not developed in an integrated manner. So there are certain advantages of having different ministries, different departments, but there is also a limitation of dividing your work into different ministry, different department. I have given you 2 examples of structure. So structure ke upar, we will have certain scholars coming and discussing about the structure of public organization, how the structure can be improved. Okay. Second, processes. That public organizations follow different kind of processes. For example, today, when we are talking about e-governance, when we are talking about mobile governance, m-governance, what are the advantages? What are the limitations? Right? When we are talking about processes like, suppose, single window clearance, right? When we are talking about processes which are pro-people, right? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Okay. Similarly, so once we have understood the structure, the process, और यहाँ पे क्या पढ़ना होगा हमें? The different scholars will give their view on different kinds of structure, different kinds of processes. We have to study thinkers, the different scholars. Then structure, process. After this is the human behavior. We may have the best kind of structure. We may have the best kind of structure. We may have the best kind of process. Today, if you see, we boast of being one of the largest democracy. What not structures are there? We have structures where people can participate in the process of governance, right? We have processes like the right to information. We can ask information from the government. We can do social audit. there is a software called as CP Grams. It's a public grievance redressal mechanism that you can just complain against a public servant on your mobile phone. But despite of all that, without, not generalizing, but then despite of that, for many people in India, still the sight of police, it generates a sense of fear. Yes or no? Why? Because of the behavioral aspect. Because of the behavioral aspect. That my baap attitude. That we are a part of the state, so we are your my baap. And the common man, in the terms of the famous cartoonist R.K. Lakshman, that the common man is a little man. That the common man is a little man, wo chota aadmi hai. And people associated with the state, they are my baap. Right? That they are symbolic of authority. They are symbolic of authority. So the behavioral aspect, especially if you look at in South Asian administration, in Indian administration, that there is still a colonial hangover. Colonial, जो British government का एक hangover था, there is a colonial hangover. That public servants lack the kind of humility, lack the kind of dedication and humility which is expected from them. Right? There is at times a sense of arrogance in handling public work. So for example, I'll give you simple examples to relate. The kind of tone in which you complain, right? You complain to a private sector organization. आप जाइए, आप एयरटेल की सर्विस खराब आ रही है, आप गए एयरटेल के शॉप में बताने के लिए कि अरे तुम्हारा नेटवर्क नहीं आ रहा ठीक से. बट द मोमेंट यू गो टू अ BSNL ऑफिस, आपका तुरंत टोन कम हो जाता है. सर थोड़ा सा प्लीज देख लेगा, वो नेटवर्क नहीं ठीक से आ रहा है, किसी को भेज देगा चेक करने के लिए. वाई? बिकॉज स्टेट अथॉरिटी. State authority. So when you face state authority, there is a huge power gap, right? There is a huge power gap. And these are behavioral aspects that we know that the person on the other side has an arrogant behavior and can easily get away with the arrogant behavior. Although today that things are fast improving, but still there is a behavioral aspect associated. एक तो ये एक तरीके का behavior हुआ. Let me talk about the second kind of behavior. You all get into services. The promotion is not linked to your performance. In civil services, promotion is not linked to your performance. So suppose you are rank 10, somebody is rank 15. आप उससे अच्छा काम करें, खराब काम करें, you will be promoted based on your seniority and not based on your work. And that reflects in our behavior, yes or no? There is something called as a 10 o'clock syndrome, a 6 o'clock syndrome. 10 o'clock syndrome, क्या? कि जान प्राण लेके जैसे भी करके 10 बजे जाके ऑफिस में वो, क्योंकि आजकल बायोमेट्रिक अटेंडेंस हो गया है, अटेंडेंस लगा दिया. किसी भी गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस के आसपास जाके देखना, 9:45 के आसपास यू विल सी द सेम गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर्स रनिंग टू ऑफिस, है ना, भाग भाग के जा रहे हैं. और जब 10 बजे एक बार फिंगरप्रिंट लग गया, उसके बाद उपाय दो मैं, कोई बोलने वाला नहीं है. उसके बाद रख के कैंटीन में जाए चाय समोसा. And I'm not blaming. I don't want to misuse my opportunity, that if I have the opportunity to speak, there are many public servants who are very dedicated, work very hard, very honestly. But then you also see the negative behavioral aspect. Behavioral aspect क्या है कि मेरे काम से तो मेरा प्रमोशन होना नहीं है, बस क्या है, मुझे 10 बजे ऑफिस पहुंच जाना है. ठीक है. And then you look at, you go to any government office. 6 बजे ऐसा लगेगा कि एक कोई मैटिनी शो खत्म हुआ है ना, एक कोई मूवी का शो खत्म हुआ है और सब लोग एक साथ निकले. वाई? बिकॉज ऑल ऑफ देम वर वेटिंग 5:45 से कि 6 बजने दो, बैक वैक कर लिया, बैग तुरंत खत्म करके निकल जाना है. So the focus is not work, the focus is adhering only to rules and regulation. So I just have what kind of behavior? I only have a rule compliant behavior, कि मैं कोई ऐसा काम ना करूं जिससे मुझे punishment मिले. That is my behavior. Why? Because if I get punished, then only my seniority goes down. Right? And that is how, that in fact, there is a very, there is a behavioral attitude in the government that be very, very careful in your work. क्यों? क्योंकि आपका करियर कब खराब हो सकता है? जब आप कोई गलत काम करे. When something wrong happens at your end. If you do something very innovative, very good, you will not be given out of turn promotion. But by chance, even if a human error happens, and if an action is taken against you, then probably that you will lose your seniority and you will lose your promotion opportunity. So what is in the best behavioral interest मेरा कि मुझे लग रहा है कि ये काम तो थोड़ा रिस्की है, जाने दो, नहीं करेगा, है ना? 59-year, 58-year-old people in government departments बहुत बार बोलेंगे नहीं हम इस पे साइन नहीं करेगा. Why? कुछ गलत हो जाने से मेरा पेंशन रुक सकता है. There is a rule compliant behavior. There is lot of fear of rules and regulation, but there is hardly any incentive for good work. We listen to, from our own state, we have seen public servants getting awards for excellency in excellence in public administration, right? That many civil servants have been awarded. The work of some of the civil servants have been noted by, leading media houses for their innovation, for their work during COVID times. But is it that those officers have been given any out-of-turn promotion? No. Because promotion is based on seniority. तो मेरा behavior कैसा हो जाएगा? That even if I am not innovative, even if I am not working hard, it doesn't have any negative impact on my career. So my behavior is that I should not take any risk, because if you innovate, if I am innovating, there is a risk involved. अगर मैं innovation कर रहा हूं, मैं कोई नया काम कर रहा हूं, there is a risk involved. So many civil servants are risk aversive. They avoid taking risk because if the result happens to be wrong, they will be penalized. But if it results into some achievement, it's not that they are given out of turn promotion. The salary is the same. The public servant who is, there are many public servants, आप जाइए, आप मैंने negative बात बताया, तो let me talk about positive also. You see a large group of people, है ना, हंसते खेलते बाहर एक टाइम में निकल रहे हैं. Still you go to any public department, है ना, बिल्डिंग के बाहर से देखना 9-10 बजे रात तक भी लाइट जल रहा है और एक दो आदमी अंदर घूम रहा है, दिखेगा. Why? Because there are many dedicated public servants who work overtime without any extra salary. Why? Because what is their behavior? The sense of responsibility is a kick for them. Right? तो behavioral scholars आके क्या बताते हैं? That how can you motivate people given that you cannot give them promotion out of turn, you cannot give them extra salary despite of that, that how can you motivate people? For example, suppose that if you are all, deputy superintendent of police, and there is a new anti-terror squad of police which is being created, right, in the Capitol complex. Now I choose the top performing DSP to lead the ATS, the anti-terror squad. The salary is the same. The salary is the same, right? The designation is the same, but because you were chosen to lead a specialized group, that adds lot of dignity to your work. That adds lot of self-importance that you see. That gives you a kind of recognition. So, जो behavioral aspect है, इसमें we study the present status of behavior. How, with limited resources, we can still motivate people. Right? Limited resources, we can still motivate people. That there are people for whom the monetary needs may be important. There are people for whom the non-monetary needs may be important. Right? The non-monetary needs may be important. Right? For example, say suppose if I am teaching you, fine, it's I'm earning my bread and butter, which is one source of motivation. But then, probably another source of motivation for waking up early in the morning, coming all the way from Itanagar, being excited about, taking a course. Why? Because I attach a sense of dignity to my work. I attach a sense of self-esteem, self-pride to my work, that okay, that I have an important task at hand to teach the aspirants for civil services, right? So probably, if tomorrow, if I want to put in an effort which is more than my mandated professional requirement, then what will be my kick? My kick would be that, you know, I am doing this important task, lot of self-esteem hai mere kaam mein, that I am guiding students, the best of the students who are preparing for civil services. Okay, so how behavior can be altered not only through monetary incentives but also the non-monetary incentives. तो behavior of public servants कैसा है, क्यों है और कैसे change किया जा सकता है, that we will study in the behavioral aspect of administration. And fourth, the interface. एक है public organization. पब्लिक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अपने ऑफिस में बैठ के पीछे काम कर रही है, लेकिन पब्लिक को प्रॉब्लम कहां हो रहा है सबसे ज्यादा? व्हेन आई गो टू मीट अ पब्लिक फंक्शनरी, इंटरफेस, द पॉइंट ऑफ कॉन्टैक्ट. हाउ कैन आई इंप्रूव द इंटरफेस बिटवीन पीपल एंड द गवर्नमेंट so that people have a friendly experience, people have a better experience at the interface between people and the public organization. Okay, people and the public organization. So, public organization may in section A we will be studying about the structure of public organization, the process, the behavior and interface. हाँ, शुरू में एक बस पढ़ेंगे फर्स्ट चैप्टर में कि ये पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन कहाँ से शुरू हुआ, वुडरो विल्सन के एफर्ट से. So we will study about the history of the subject and then that what are the structures, processes, behavior and interface. उस पे डिफरेंट थिंकर्स ने आके क्या अपना एडवाइस दिया. Am I clear? Section B, it talks about the different aspects of administration. Different aspects of administration. For example, one aspect of administration can be that let's have a comparative study. Comparative study. That in the Western world, in the OECD countries, in America, in other parts of Europe, that they use very advanced technology. So should we also borrow that technology? But then the people in those countries are far more aware. The technology, the internet speed, their digital infrastructure is very well advanced. In those countries, probably that there is one single language that unifies the entire country. For example, in case of digital technology, what is one barrier? That most of the digital solutions, they are available in English. Now in India, some in Hindi, and some in other languages as well. But then, what about people who do not speak? There are good large number of Indians who neither understand English nor understand Hindi nor understand other popular languages like Marathi, Tamil, Kannada, Gujarati. What about the linguistic minority? The linguistic minority, especially old age people, they will be at a disadvantage. So when I compare administration of India with maybe some other country, what all things I can borrow, what all things I should not borrow. So comparative aspect of administration. Then the different types of administration, like say financial administration. जैसे गवर्नमेंट बजट बनाती है, so that is financial administration. Then say especially for the government, the law and order administration. That's important. Say other aspects of administration like say personnel administration. What is personnel administration? Personnel. For example, there are so many people who are working for the government. How to manage those people? What would be their career progression? Right? Personnel. What would be their, say recruitment process, training process? Civil servants require a lot of training, yes or no? That for example, today you are joining at a time when technology is the buzzword, even in administration, it is possible that by the time you reach senior positions, that there would be a lot of automation, decision with the help of statistical modeling, robotics, AI, right, artificial intelligence. But then I'm sure at this time, we are not very well versed with these technologies, yes or no? We are not very well versed with these technology. So what needs to be done after your selection? Timely, periodic training, right? Periodic training. Training not just in technology, training in other aspects as well. For example, a public servant who was recruited in 1980s would be used to the license permit Raj system. कि government dominate करेगी, private sector को freedom नहीं रहेगा. But suddenly after 10 years, the economic liberalization came. The government was pushing for development of private sector. So now, till now, the public servant, जो डंडे लेके जा रहा है private sector के पास कि तुम ये नहीं कर सकते हो, ये नहीं कर सकते हो. Now the same public servant must be trained to reach out to the private sector to facilitate their growth, to help them grow big, right? So that requires training. 1980s, 1970s, the civil servants required to be an inspector कि ये गलत है, ऐसा नहीं करो. But suddenly, here comes a new economic policy in 1990s that the same public servants are required to be facilitator to the growth of private sector. And therefore, that personnel administration, it looks after recruitment, it looks after training, it looks after career progression, etc. That is also an important aspect of administration. So we study about the different aspects of administration in section B of paper 1. Am I clear? Paper 1. Paper 2 is about Indian administration. Paper 2 is about Indian administration. The same thing now, that what is the structure of Indian administration? So you will study, in fact, this paper, you will find a lot of overlap with your general studies mains paper 2, right? I'm again repeating that there are other subjects also which have a good amount of overlap, right? But I can rationally vouch for the fact that public administration would have one of the highest overlap among any other subject with general studies paper. In fact, that has been one reason that students with public administration have scored very high in general studies mains paper 2. If you look at the questions over there in GS mains paper 2, for example, questions on citizen charter, social audit. In fact, citizen charter, social audit, these all you have to study in detail in public administration. And the same questions came in general studies mains paper 2 as well. We study about civil services. We study about the behavioral aspect of civil services in public administration. You have a good number of chapters in ethics, integrity and aptitude, GS paper 4, which deals with the same ethical behavioral aspect of the civil servants. So your general studies mains paper 2 and general studies mains paper 4, they have a very, very high overlap with public administration, with the subject of public administration. So, and especially that overlap will be from paper 2 because we are studying about Indian administration over here. In essence, you will find many things of Indian polity. For example, local self-government, district administration, state government, center-state relationship. है ना? जो आप Indian polity में पढ़ते हैं, center-state relationship, etc. Those things will keep on repeating over here. So paper 2 is strictly Indian administration. Now, because I understand that there is no subject called public administration in your prelims, so we don't have a clear understanding of the subject to begin with. Now, are you able to make sense of the subject? इसमें क्या पढ़ना है? Paper 1, the public organizations. कैसा structure होना चाहिए? What should be the process? What should be the behavior? How the interface between people and public organization should be there. Different aspects of organization in section B, paper 1. and exactly these things, how they are happening in India, that we have to study in paper 2. So that is in brief the explanation at a very very macro level, bird eye view. ऊपर से हम देख रहे हैं अपने सब्जेक्ट को, तो ये पढ़ना है. The detailed syllabus has been already shared with you, right? Detailed syllabus has already been shared with you. So you see over there that on the second page you have introduction, that means how the subject came into existence, administrative thought, what thinkers have said on different subjects, administrative behavior, organization theories, accountability and control, etc. Right? और पेपर 2 में अगर आप देखें, you have similar things over here, evolution of Indian administration, Indian constitution, right? Public sector in India, union government, state government, district administration, center-state relation, etc. Okay? So in fact, the homework for today would be that you have to go back home and just read the syllabus once. That's it, nothing more than that. Okay. After having understood the syllabus, now understand how the question paper of optional subject looks like. With इसको बिल्कुल अपने दिमाग में बिठा लेना, or else जो optional subject का advantage है, you will lose it, right? इसको दिमाग में बिठाइए, and I'm telling you, you know, with that maybe because of pressure, that some of the students made a mistake that they wrote all the questions from the same section. I'll tell you how the question paper looks like, okay? So over here, suppose if you have paper 1, total 250 marks का होता है, okay, of 3 hours. है ना? So morning slot, the first slot will be paper 1, the second slot will be paper 2 of the optional subject. You have 8 questions, right? So from in section A, you will have question number 1. यहाँ पर question number 1 में generally what has been the trend till now, it can change, right? But generally क्या होता है, that suppose if you have question, don't copy it, I will leave it as it is for 1 minute, then you can copy it. All eyes on the board, please. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. Then you have section B, question 5, question 6, question 7, and question 8. All the 8 questions are of 50 marks each. मतलब पेपर पे आपको 400 marks का question paper है, लेकिन you don't have to solve all 8, right? The instruction says very clearly that you have to solve 5 out of 8. You have to solve 5 questions out of 8 questions, in which question number 1 and 5 are mandatory. Question number 1 and 5 are mandatory. That means ये दोनों question तो मुझे, that these 2 questions I have to do. So question number 1 and question number 5, they are mandatory. I have to solve these 2 questions. Fine. Besides this, that besides question number 1 and 5, I have to select 3 other questions, because total how many questions I have to solve? 5. So 3 question मुझे ऐसे select करना है that remaining 3 questions I have to select in a manner that I at least choose 1 question from both the section. So the remaining 3 for remaining 3 questions, I must select at least one question from both sections. That means, suppose if 1 and 5 are mandatory. Suppose if I'm writing question number 2 and then I write question number 3, so can I write question number 4? I cannot write question number 4, right? Why? Because if I write question number 4, then I have written all the 3 questions from the same section. So technically, your question number 4 will be cancelled. You will not be given any marks. Clear? You will not be given any marks. If I solve, suppose in my example, that if I have solved 2 and if I have solved 3, then the one remaining question I must select from 6, 7 and 8. Am I clear? 100%? Suppose, what is the other option? I can just solve question number 4 and do the 2 more from these 3, question number 7 and question number 8. Right? So I have all the freedom to decide which question I am choosing. The only restriction is that 1 and 5, they are mandatory, I have to solve them. Out of the remaining, for the remaining 3 questions, I have to at least ensure that I have touched one question from both the section. Okay, that can be in any manner. If I solve question number 2, 7, 8. Question number 3 and 4, 7. Question number 2 and 3, 8. Question number 2, 6 and 8. Jo mera man hai. I hope I'm 100% clear on this. Because why I'm repeating it all the time? Because it was disheartening and obviously unfortunate for the candidate that some of them, they made this mistake. Right? They made this mistake. Okay. So, and this is giving you so much of advantage. This is giving you so much of advantage. One advantage that people will generally talk, which I'm asking you to avoid, is that this gives you the opportunity to leave some 20-30% of the syllabus. That is the biggest sin that you can do. Right? Choosing for shortcut is the biggest sin that you can do in civil services preparation. Okay. So that is why anybody who is opting for the subject of public administration with a view that syllabus बहुत छोटा है, जल्दी खत्म हो जाएगा, I would advise them to rethink their decision. Public administration as a subject will take care of not only 500 marks, right? But also if you have a good knowledge of public administration, at least it will help you, at least in GS2 and GS4 मिला के, for around some 200-250 marks extra का. Okay. And that advantage you will be able to take only and only if you are able to, have a complete coverage of the syllabus, A. And B, when you leave some portion of syllabus, then you are not, see, question may come from a particular topic, but if I have knowledge of other topics, I will be able to draw a better comparison, right? In fact, some of the students, in fact, if I have to reach out to those students who have already written their exam with public administration and somehow that they are not able to break that stagnation. I will talk about the marks also, but suppose those who are not able to cross the marks of around say 220, 230, right? In your mind, just answer yes or no, that probably there could be 2 reasons for it. A, that you are not using the knowledge of thinkers in Indian administration. जो यहाँ पर जो हम पेपर 1 में thinkers के बारे में पढ़ रहे हैं, उसका knowledge हम नहीं use कर रहे हैं पेपर 2 में. That is one reason. And second reason is in paper 2 that we are not taking the help of the Administrative Reforms Commission, ARC. Right? That there is a Bible of public administration called Administrative Reforms Commission. A good understanding of the Administrative Reforms Commission, a commission which made suggestion as to how to change, how to reform the administration. If you have good knowledge about that, although it's a very voluminous document, I will provide to you a summary of it. We will keep on discussing the recommendations. if you write those recommendations in your GS paper 2, in your GS paper 4, and obviously public administration, you will see a sharp increase in your marks. And when I'm talking about the recommendation of any committee, remember, there is a lot of myth that goes. Throughout your examination, never commit this sin of underestimating the evaluator and trying to fool the evaluator is almost an attempt to suicide. है ना? That लिख दिया as per second ARC और जो अपने मन में आया लिख दिया. Why? Because thousands of page का document है. चलो कौन पढ़ता है पूरा, कुछ भी लिख दिया. Right? I'm telling you, it's a suicide you are doing on paper. That to an evaluator, you are trying to tell him that, look, I'm considering you a fool. है ना? Or writing simplistic things. For example, that there are ARC recommendations on RTI. That how RTI can be improved. अब आप उसमें लिख रहे हैं that second ARC says to reply the RTI in time. अरे भाई ये कौन सा recommendation है? Obviously उस 1000 पेज में कहीं ना कहीं तो लिखा होगा. वहां तो ये भी लिखा होगा that second ARC says that civil servant should be honest. तो क्या मैं लिखूं that as per second ARC civil servant should be honest? No. Please do not give wrong, factual description, and please do not give simplistic suggestions in the name of technical committees. Right? Simplistic suggestion nahi. Yes, second ARC has said that civil servant should be honest. Every person says that. Don't write these simplistic things. Right? Because this is a very, very strong rumor that you write anything in the name of, ARC, itna bada document hai, kuch na kuch ho jayega, usme likha hua hoga. Don't do that. You are trying to challenge the knowledge of the person who is evaluating your paper, is a subject matter expert for the past 20-25 years. Aap uska ego hurt karega. है ना? That you are taking chances of befooling him. Never do that. And the suggestions of ARC मतलब बहुत ही ज़्यादा technical solution होना है वो. Technical, right? So for every topic, I will ask you to keep a separate sheet और जब भी ARC का recommendation बोलूं, उसको अलग से note कर लेना है. Right? उसको अलग से note करना है. Use that in your public administration. Use that in your GS paper 2. Use that in your GS paper 4. Right? Okay. So I hope this is clear. The same thing will be there in paper 2 as well. Paper 2 में भी यही rule apply होता है. And this, इसका फायदा क्या होता है? That now it is, see, in a general studies paper, in a GS paper, all the questions are mandatory. In public administration or in any optional subject for that matter, that all the questions are not mandatory. So it gives you a discretion to choose which question to solve and which question you can leave, right? But again, this is a foundation course that, we will go in depth. We will ensure that there is a complete coverage of the syllabus. Okay. There has to be a complete coverage of the syllabus. In fact, the idea should be that if syllabus is a picture, you should cover the picture frame as well. Thoda sa usse bahar jaake bhi, right? Because the knowledge that you will take from there will help you write some extra points in your answers. Okay. Fine. See, I will now discuss about how public administration has generally done in the civil services examination. It happens to be a popular subject in UPSC. In APPSCC, it is not one of the most popular subject till now. But in APPSCC 2024, right, I'm again giving a disclaimer that I don't have the precise, accurate data, right? But being fortunate of at least coming in touch with around 330 candidates who appeared in the interview this time out of around some 420, that fortunate to have interacted with around 330 candidates before their interview, that I can vouch for this fact that among all the popular optional subjects, that public administration had the highest conversion ratio. So for example, if I recall correctly, of the 300 30 around students that I would have interacted. Around some 70 students I would have met, 70, 75 students with the subject of public administration, right? With the subject of public administration, and that you have 13 selections in the, आपको 11 लिखा हुआ because 11 our classroom program students, right? So the others were in the, so in fact I happen to know all of them but they were not a part of the public administration course, the two other, right? The rest 11, they were a part of the classroom program of public administration. And so out of around 75 people, and of the other, say, 70, 80 people whom I did not meet, right? So if I stretch it, that in around, say, 100 people maximum, around 100 people who would have faced the exam with public administration, you had 13 selections overall, right? This I'm talking of overall, 13 selections. So it has had a very, very high conversion ratio. And if I can talk about, because I happen to know 11 of them very closely. So in that case, if I can talk about that their GS2 and GS4 in general sabka achha raha hai, and by and large all the selected students, but GS2 that many of them have done relatively better because of possibly the overlap between public administration and the GS2 paper, and most importantly because of their hard work, right? So now talking about the marks, because there would be curiosity of the marks. In general, if you see that the average marks of selected students this time, apart from you have certain technical papers in which people have scored high, technical papers. Like suppose somebody from law would have scored a high marks, somebody from say the background of agriculture has scored a good marks in agriculture. So these are technical papers. But apart from the technical papers, in fact, the subject of anthropology has also done well. Apart from the technical papers, anthropology is not a technical paper. It does not require any background knowledge. Okay. But if I talk about the popular subjects, geography, political science, the subject of sociology, the subject of public administration, put together, that the unfortunately this time that the subject of political science did not do that well, right? But then if you talk about the other three subjects, geography, sociology and public administration, that among the selected students, the average score would have been around say 250 to 260, around 50% of marks. Okay, 250, 260 के आसपास एक average score है, right? So and we have even the average score amongst the selected students in public administration would be roughly around say 270 के आसपास among the selected students, right? And the highest that I know of, till now, right? I know of till now that I do not recall exactly 289 or 290. One or two marks can be here or there, right? I think 288 or 290 के आसपास है. Okay. In fact, I will check, with a couple of students just to share their journey, because those who are posted over here in the Capital Complex, that in between the course, just to share their journey, that I would request them to come down to share that, as from a student's perspective, that what all things you need to do to secure a good marks in the examination. Okay. So scoring wise, the paper is quite scoring. But again, I'm saying even, and let me just reach out to all the students, even those subjects where, for example, as I said, that in the subject of political science, that, or maybe even in subjects like philosophy, that students have not scored very high. But then let's not chase these trends. The trend can change, yes or no? In fact, this is the first time that APPSCC is happening in consecutive year, back-to-back year, right? Nahi to, if you have exams after 3 years, 4 years, you can't talk of any trend per se, right? So don't go for any subject only because the syllabus looks to be short. Because I hope we all know that the only way to qualify civil services is through hard work. इतना तो basic हम लोग सब मानते हैं ना, कि shortcut से बहुत मुश्किल है ना? आप हो सकता है you may happen to know somebody जिसने थोड़ा कम time prepare करके ही लेकिन hard work करके निकाल दिया. Good, they may have worked really hard, they may have some background knowledge from before, but remember there is only one single mantra that keep the preparation very, very simple, keep it very straight, very simple. ठीक है? Have the mental resilience, be mentally very tough, right? And also that avoid this, this Gen Z things of developing FOMO, है ना, fear of missing out. ये थोड़ा सा ये भी कर लेगा क्या, थोड़ा सा ये भी कर लेगा क्या? No. Prepare in a very, very systematic manner. In a very systematic manner. Complete coverage of the syllabus line by line, right? Complete coverage of the syllabus line by line. Any answer that I expect you to write in the first say 15, 20 days, it's only to kind of ask you to start writing anything. Unless and until you have not studied until you have not studied the first 4 chapters, that answer writing would be more like a ritual कि ठीक है चलो कर लेते हैं, right? You will be able to write answers only after you have knowledge, because again in mains exam there will be a lot of this euphoria around, a bubble around answer writing. Remember, you can write answers only when you have good knowledge, right? And obviously then it has to be backed by a very, very good practice of answer writing. But then pehle do work on knowledge aspect, right? Mains examinations are very, very daunting task, बहुत difficult होता है. At no point of time probably that you will have this confidence that I am nailing it, मैं निकाल लूँगा. Keep on hustling, keep on struggling, right? Keep on struggling, keep on working hard, do not give up, right? Do not give up ever. है ना, दिमाग में हमेशा सकेगा पारिजिपा, है ना, कि कोई नेगेटिव वर्ड नहीं आने देगा, ठीक है? कोई नेगेटिव वर्ड नहीं आने देगा. कौन हमको बोला था सुबह सुबह कि सर निशी कोट पहन के आने से भी ठीक है, तो इसीलिए हम जानबूझ के निशी वर्ड्स यूज कर रहा है. जितना आता है सारा आज ही के क्लास में बोल के खत्म कर देगा. ओके, सो रिमेंबर, इन योर माइंड इट हैज टू बी वेरी, वेरी क्लियर. It has to be very, very clear that tell yourself that you will never have this feeling कि मैं मेंस क्वालिफाई करूंगा ही, राइट? ये फीलिंग नहीं आएगा. अगर आप बहुत ज्यादा एक्सपेक्टेशन अपने आप से रखेंगे, है ना, तो फिर डिसअपॉइंटमेंट होगा कि अरे आंसर नहीं लिख पा रहा है. एग्जाम में तो 7.5 मिनट्स में लिखना होता है, यहां तो 1 घंटा हो गया कंप्लीट नहीं कर पाया है. डोंट हैव वेरी हाई एक्सपेक्टेशन. जस्ट कीप ऑन टेलिंग यू दैट क्विट नहीं करेगा. I'll keep on struggling, I'll keep on hustling to ensure, and because I don't want your decisions to be influenced in choosing the subject. Once the course gets established, thoda, that once you all have decided on your pakka that okay, this is the subject you are sticking to, then probably I will ask a couple of students to come down and share their experience. That, is it because when I say it might sound like something, अच्छा sir थोड़ा motivate करने के लिए बोल रहा है, ऐसे कर रहा है, ठीक है? But then that rarely that even people who get selected are 100% confident before selection that they will make it. Prelims में वो आ जाता है. Why? Because prelims में if you are continuously scoring very high, कि अच्छा आपका factual knowledge ठीक है, but mains examination थोड़ा subjective होता है ना? तो आपको लगेगा नंबर आएगा नहीं आएगा. Always there will be doubts in mind. That's very human. That's what I'm trying to say you. It's very human, because if you have very high expectation from yourself, and if you are not able to meet your expectation, then there will be disappointment, right? Study hard. This is the only year where students are fortunate to know that they are going to write the exam in the next 9 months, right? So that you can plan your preparation. The course will be roughly around 3 months. So when I'm starting the course, right? So for the next 3 months, so by mid of April that the course would get over, depending upon, the answer writing practice and your need for answer writing practice, the course will be extended, especially for practicing answer, because the best of the answers will come only after the end of a particular paper. For example, paper 1 का आप answers अच्छा कब लिख पाएंगे? जब आप पूरा paper 1 पढ़ लिया. Then only you will be able to bring points. Say for example, if I study about the theory of a particular scholar, Taylor, F.W. Taylor, हो सकता है कि कोई दूसरा स्कॉलर है साइमन जिसकी थ्योरी ऑपोजिट हो टेलर की. सो व्हेन आई एम राइटिंग ऑन टेलर, आई नीड टू आल्सो क्रिटिसाइज टेलर यूजिंग साइमन, ठीक है? सो यू विल बी एबल टू राइट कंप्लीट आंसर्स ओनली व्हेन यू हैव कंप्लीटेड अ सिग्निफिकेंट पोर्शन. हाँ, थोड़ा पेन पेपर पे कैसे मूव करता है है ना, हाथ दर्द करता है लिखने में, ये सब समझने के लिए I will give you questions to begin with also, so that you write some answers to simple questions. Okay. If you look at the paper of APPSCC 2020 and 2024, that questions have been very, very straightforward, especially in paper 1. Taylor discussed the scientific management theory of Taylor. Khatam. Question. Right. Question khatam ho gaya. So questions have been very, very straightforward, especially in paper 1. Okay. Paper 2 mein there have been some good questions. And my personal suggestion is that if you have a good knowledge and if you get an opportunity to write answer to a good question, attempt it. Because many people will not write those questions. If you are able to write a good answer to those questions, your marks will sharply increase. Right? Your marks will sharply increase over there. Okay? So, that was the agenda from my side. If I'll just check that if I have not missed anything. The plan is given out over here, right? That I'll just tell you now talked enough about the subject, some little bit of talking about my style of teaching so that you know, because in an optional subject, you interact with the teacher for the longest period of time. In a GS paper, the teacher would come, teach his part, and then a new teacher comes, right? So, if we are together for the next 3 months, I would like to subject myself to a very high degree of accountability, right? What is my complete assurance is a complete coverage of the syllabus. Okay. Say answer writing, and especially a gist of second ARC recommendations. In fact, I hope that by that time, the recommendations of, because there is even in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, that there is a Reforms Commission has been constituted to comment upon the need for the reform in administration in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. When that report is public, right, then probably, we should and we will add some points from there, okay? Commenting a bit on my, I'm sure that most of us, we already know each other from before. To the new students, my preference is to be in a very, very serious teaching, right? Early morning hours, my personality can force you to sleep, right? I'm slightly on the boring side. Carry your cup of coffee, tea, right? Because see, I have no preference for trying to make the class funny or anything like that. If at all it happens at time, it is never to be intentional. Because see, you are in a very, very serious phase of life. Let me tell you, boys and girls, right? You are in an extremely serious phase of your life, right? My personal belief is not to kill time by talking too many lateral things. So, and that is why that, I'll make sure that whatever I speak, right, 99% of it is related to your exam. Okay? So, the classes I'm informing well in advance. I don't intend to make it entertaining. It has to be very intense, serious teaching. You're talking of 500 marks, right? Answer writing practice. So we will try to make the most productive use of time. Okay? And please make sure that you don't miss a single class. Right? You don't miss a single class. Okay? That this is a huge dependency. If you choose the subject of public administration, this is going to be a very, very strong relationship for the next, 3.5 months that we will be here, and right up to a mentorship till your examination, right? And just to have a, idea, I understand that the classes, should not be boring, but that is why I'm informing you well in advance. My personality is slightly on the boring side. ठीक है? इसीलिए थोड़ा सा कलरफुल कोट पहन के आ जाता है ताकि कुछ यहाँ पर कलर दिखते रहे. Okay. I believe in completely serious teaching. Okay. And optional subjects, they require intense preparation. है ना? अगर आप वहाँ पे कोई भी optional subject, I'm not just talking about public administration, आप अपने optional subject को बहुत अच्छे से पढ़िए. With the help of your optional subject, you can write one essay. You can definitely write one essay. है ना? You talk to people who have taken up their exam earlier, right? That with the help of, but that would require lot of, serious effort. है ना? बीच में हम लोग हंसी मजाक करें, आप बिल्कुल करें. I have advised the GS students also, I'll advise to you as well, that go for intense study, intense बिल्कुल. And then parallelly, because the journey can be frustrating at times, have a good hobby. ठीक है? Have a good hobby. कुछ भी, music, guitar, sports. One good hobby. Especially if the hobby can be थोड़ा जो आप अपने अकेले में कर सकते हैं, isolation. फुटसाल खेलना हॉबी थोड़ा ज़्यादा रिस्की हो सकता है, बिकॉज एवरी सैटरडे कोई फ़ोन आ जाएगा, आज आ जाओ, नई टीम नहीं जुड़ रहा है, तुम क्यों नहीं आएगा, ये सब नहीं है ना. इफ़ यू कैन डू समथिंग इन आइसोलेशन, वो हॉबी है ना, पेंटिंग, म्यूजिक, डांस, व्हाटएवर, योगा, any that is your choice. Okay, cooking. So follow one hobby that helps you ease yourself, right? That reduces the tension, right? Depend on one person who backs you in all good, bad, ugly times. ठीक है? बहुत दोस्त यार लोग जो दोस्त ये बोल देना कि नहीं तुम ठीक है, गलत होने से तो हम तुमको डांटता, वो दोस्त नहीं है. जो गलत होने पे साथ नहीं दे वो आपका दोस्त नहीं है. दोस्त का मतलब है कि आप गलत है तब भी वो बोले कि आप सही है. Have one person, one or two people who keep on backing you, है ना? Keep on backing you. आप उसको फोन करके अपना फ्रस्ट्रेशन शेयर कर सके, रो सके कि आज टेस्ट दिया, बहुत कम नंबर आया, वो आपको बोले अरे तुम्हारे टीचर को कुछ नहीं आता होगा, जाने दो, है ना? Who keeps on backing you, always covers your back, है ना? You will feel very protected. The journey is frustrating. I've myself been a part of it during my phase, seeing that over a decade with the students, right? And if you can go for, and I'm like very happy, I take this example all the time, many of you would know about it already, right? I'll tell you, because generally my personal view is against any kind of group study. मैं आपको पहले ही बोल दे रहा हूँ, my personal view, क्योंकि finding the right set of people is very very difficult thing. आदमी का पहचान करना बहुत मुश्किल है ना? So finding the right group of people is very very difficult. और उसमें कोई गलत अगर ग्रुप बन गया, then you will get misled. But I'll tell you the journey, the story of 3 students, right, who were generally for their GS batches in Naharlagan, but because I did not take the PubAt class at Naharlagan, in Nirjuli, that these 3 students were there, right? With a complete disclaimer, I'm not telling the name to show the selection, with a disclaimer that I really value the kind of joint efforts that they made, the kind of help that they used to do, right? In fact, their friendship to an extent that anybody of public administration from Nirjuli, वो हमेशा ही पूछते हैं, सर वो जो तीनों आगे बैठता था उसका हो गया क्या? ऐसा. So they would always, 3 friend ऐसे आगे यहाँ पे सीट लेके बैठेगा, साथ में आंसर लिखेगा. In between the prelims and mains examination, that they would write the answers together, share each other's answer. Imagine, इस मतलबी सेल्फिश दुनिया में कोई अपना मेंस एग्जामिनेशन के पहले अपना आंसर दूसरे को दे रहा है, ठीक है, कि मेरा अच्छा पॉइंट. यहाँ लोग नोट्स ऐसे छुपा छुपा के लिख रहे हैं ना, नोट्स मांगने पे बोल दे रहा भुला गया, दे नहीं रहा है अपना नोट्स. एंड दे आर राइटिंग आंसर्स, शेयरिंग विथ ईच अदर ऑन अ डेली बेसिस, every basis. So they would take a question between prelims and mains. Every day they used to write. कभी एक आध दिन मिस हुआ तो अलग बात है, but then every day in a group they will post question, write the answers, right? आपस में अगर, I don't know whether they used to advise or not, that I don't know, but then in one place they will write their answers. If you are fortunate to find that kind of a couple of dedicated people, right? That kind of a couple of dedicated people, then it's a blessing, right? It's a blessing. I'm taking the names again with a clarification. I'm not, it's to their hard work, to their cooperation that they extended, It's not, I am not appropriating their hard work at all, but what kind of support you can provide to each other, given if you are able to find the right people around. I am so happy, you know, especially I'm happy for any and everyone who got selected, but then especially that if I take a learning, because that changed my belief system. I used to believe कि नहीं अकेले में पढ़ाई करो, चुपचाप पढ़ाई करो, ये ज़्यादा दोस्ती यारी में बहुत disturbance होता है. This is my very strong belief system, right? But my belief system was changed by 3 of my students who put in very, very joint efforts. All the 3 stand selected today, a matter of immense pride and happiness for me, right? One into DSP, the other into DDMO, and the third into ASO, right? Nipi Chisi, Ayang Girang, and Kenbom Rina, right? So, and throughout, for the past, I think, 2 years that I'm seeing them together, that हमेशा साथ में बैठ के आपस में एक दूसरे को support करके पढ़ाई करने में, right? जो मुझे क्लास में दिख रहा है, right? And sharing answers with each other in between their prelims and mains. If you are confident about such people, है ना, कि आपके आसपास कुछ ऐसे लोग हैं जो आपको unconditional support देंगे, right? Then I think, as I say, that it is a learning that I have taken from my students. I did not believe in it earlier. So I'm sharing this with you, that if you can find 1 or 2 people who are similarly driven with a desire, you know, to get into the services, right, to make a mark for themselves, are equally dedicated, then you can definitely go for a limited, you know, kind of a group study, in a sense that you can show your answers, etc. to each other. Discuss certain things, पढ़ाई तो अकेले ही करना है. ठीक है? Okay. With that, I think whatever I had to say, it's over. On Monday that we will be starting with the topic of the introduction. But before that, see, the first 3-4 classes, I will be teaching you some basics of polity. Basics of polity. और उस basics of polity को से I will take out the subject of public administration, right? So for example, all the terms like state, ये state है क्या, right? State का फिर different, you know, organs आया, legislative, executive, judiciary, right? Then you have, so that is separation of power, doctrine of checks and balances, right? Then because in Indian administration that we have to, you know, work within the contours, within the boundary of the constitution. So constitution के कुछ important points, so that I am freely able to use those terms in my classes. For example, if I say that, okay, you know, that this is the letter of the law, but then there is a spirit of law, that constitution is important, but constitutionalism is also important. So now you must know constitutionalism from before, right? So those things that I will talk beforehand. Okay? Some 3-4 classes initially, I'll be talking about some disjointed topics, जो आपस में connected नहीं है, topics of Indian polity, right? Or political science. And then probably after some 3-4 days, that we will be starting with the first chapter of the introduction part of public administration. Books to read. See, I will again clarify that because the APPSCC examination is announced already, right? So a very clear information that in my mind there will always be APPSCC examination. ठीक है? अगर APPSC examination नहीं होता, then in my mind, obviously the syllabus remains the same for UPSC and APPSCC, right? But somehow, because the examination of APPSCC has been announced, and I understand that that is our topmost priority, right? So my focus would be on, so this is a strict APPSCC public administration course. Those who are preparing for UPSC, I will keep on advising something extra to read. You can feel free to reach out to me at any point of time, right? But no such claims that, you know, UPSC come APPSCC, at least for my subject of public administration. Why? Because I want to leave no stone unturned, understanding that almost all of us over here have a very determined thing that we have to get into APPSCC. Having said so, when I say that almost covers some 80% of your UPSC as well. Syllabus 100%, 80%. Why? Because in UPSC, you know, the requirement of studying a administrative reforms commission is even more higher, than an APPSCC. ठीक है? I will provide those gist to you, but when I'm taking my classes, I'm clearly informing that in my mind, I will have APPSCC in my mind. Okay? Fine. Apart from that, those who are preparing for UPSC as well parallelly, मैं उनको advise करूंगा to read a magazine called Economic and Political Weekly. Economic and Political Weekly, EPW. Okay. Because there the economic and political developments, they keep coming. So, अगर आप seriously prepare कर रहे हैं UPSC के लिए, then you must read that magazine. That will help you in general for your general studies and especially for public administration as well. Okay, because political developments वहाँ पे काफी सारे examples दिए रहेंगे. Okay, fine. Any other thing? So I think all that I had to say have already completed. The foundation reading material has been already given to you. The next set of material will be provided to you in the next week, because the 4 days I will be talking about the basic terms of polity itself, right? It will be a 2-hour class, dedicate at least 1 hour for revision, right? So we make a commitment of at least that public administration should take 3 hours on a daily basis, right? That 2 hours of classes and at least 1 hour you go back home and study. Our idea should be that by May, हमारा पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन बिल्कुल थरो एक इतना मोटा बंडल में साइड में रखा हुआ है. ठीक है? और उसमें क्या होने चाहिए? आपके नोट्स और साथ में ऑन एवरी लाइन ऑफ द सिलेबस एक आंसर. और वो आंसर प्रैक्टिस के लिए सम ऑफ द आंसर्स वी विल राइट इन रियल टाइम. बट व्हेन यू राइट योर आंसर्स टू बिगिन विथ, फील फ्री टू राइट इट इन अ मैनर एज इफ यू आर मेकिंग नोट्स. क्या आप देख के भी लिख सकते हैं, आप ऐड करते रहिए उसमें, सो दैट now see, you will be completing the subject by May. Probably here comes a June, July, August. तो मेंस के बारे में सोचने पे थोड़ा सा डर किसका लगेगा? प्रीलिम्स को लेकर, है ना? So your preparation should be very intense before May, that by May, end of May, you have thoroughly completed. By April, that course will be over. May में आप अपने तरफ से, if at all, if it is required for us to do more answer writing, वो करके your notes should be fully ready. ठीक है? Notes should be fully ready with answer writing, so that you have written at least some 200 answers on it. And then after your prelims, that you can just revise your notes, because उस समय answer लिखना है. So more you read the answers that you yourself have written, it will be like, you will have that exact idea, okay, what all things I have to write in the exam. ठीक है? तो answers बिल्कुल लिखना है. Answers I will advise, please write in loose sheet of paper. Okay. I will advise for 2 reasons. I will advise to write in loose sheet of paper so that I can carry your answers for evaluation. Okay. So write in loose sheet of paper. एक अपना फाइल, stick file बनाइए, है ना? हर एक चैप्टर का आंसर वहां पे रखिए, so that you have it at one place compiled together, right? उसके बाद एक कंप्लीट हो गया, उस फाइल को एक जगह रख दो, एक चैप्टर का, है ना? मतलब सिविल सर्विसेज का प्रिपेयर करना थोड़ा सा आपको क्रेजी काम करना पड़ेगा. यू हैव वन फाइल ऑफ 1 चैप्टर एट 1 प्लेस. आप कहीं जा रहे, आपको लग रहा है मुझे जाकर वहां पे आधा घंटा बैठना पड़ेगा. ठीक है? यू टेक वन ऑफ द फाइल्स, कीप ऑन लुकिंग ऑन द आंसर्स दैट यू हैव रिटन. ठीक है? इट विल हेल्प यू रिवाइज एंड यू विल बी एबल टू फ्रस्ट्रेट अदर्स ऑल्सो, है ना? ये दिखा के कितना पढ़ाई कर रहे हो, तो खुद का सिलेक्शन और दूसरे को नहीं, ये नहीं करना है कभी. ठीक है? मतलब you will be able to revise for multiple times, right? So I think if I speak more, I'll be more repetitive in nature. So it will be it from my side for today. Anything that you want to ask? Anybody has a query about books to read, etc.? Feel free to read any book that you like to. There is no advice from my side, right? My assurance is that the classes will complete 100% coverage. I can assure that those who are not choosing to read a book, right? So if I talk about out of the 11 students, I think at least So all the 11 have not confirmed, but at least I can say that 7, 8 have clearly confirmed that they have not read any book, right, for public administration, right? That they have not read any book for public administration. They have just dependent upon the class notes. I will give you a lot of dictations in the class, ठीक है? Use short form, उसको लिखते रहना है. कभी कभी irritation होगा, speed ज़्यादा हो रहा है dictation का, don't give up, लिखते रहना है, ठीक है? So just be ready to struggle for the next 9-10 months. Okay? And then hopefully that the struggle will bring good colors for you. Okay? Okay. Now, this way of people, you want to ask anything? No? Okay. The middle row? Nobody. To my left? Nothing? Okay then. So, that will be it for today.